capitalist nation to go to war. But what happens is they've systematically worked in institutions that we believe in to promote this culture of war. And as Armistice Day transforms into Veterans Day, we continue to memorialize these ideas. And that's what propels kids to join these conflicts. You know, it propelled me as a child to join the military. You know, I played with G.I. Joes in the backyard and, you know, dreamed about this glorification of combat, of one day, you know, braving bullets and picking up my wounded comrade and, you know, carrying him through a field of fire. And, you know, it just doesn't happen like that. You know, really it's this idea also of this rite of passage that we have through military service, because we don't have anything in the Western society anymore to really designate a rite of passage. And it's not just young men, it's young women too that are falling for this trap of these ideals. And you know, in the classic, I guess, story, you know, a young tribesperson would be given a spear and set off into the bush and expected to survive for so many days or bring home a kill, an animal. And then there's a ritual to recognize that this person has accomplished the task of transformation. And there's clear defined roles. You know, you no longer sit at the kids' table, but now you're expected to do these new things. You have new responsibilities, and it's accepted in the culture. We don't have that today in America. You know, I speak to classes all the time, to both college classes and to high school classes, and I always ask them the same thing: how many of you think you're an adult? Now, usually about half the room raises their hand, and I'm always surprised how few college students are raising their hand and how many high school students are raising their hand. And then I ask them, okay, what was that defining moment of transformation in your life where you turned from a child to an adult? And their answers are usually, I got my driver's license, or I drank my first beer, or I got laid, or I got a job, or, you know, and it's these things that just kind of pass through life that they're not recognized by our society. And, you know, I think folks are challenged growing up in America looking for that thing that really is that transformation. And, you know, and it doesn't play out like I envisioned. You know, you go out there in the bush and you don't find the lion, and you trip and you break your spear, and you know you come home and hide it behind your back, and you go to the VFW and they're like, "Hey, welcome home, Johnny. Have a beer, Johnny. You're a hero, Johnny." You know, and you're expected to march in Veterans Day parade, sit on a Jeep, and you know, get all this honor and respect of something that is just really confusing and humiliating and embarrassing and misunderstood. And, you know, I feel like we're challenging that here today by gathering under a banner of Veterans for Peace. Who's more credible to challenge our policies of war than veterans who served in the military? And who's more needed than our civilian allies and our associate members to stand with us? Only half of 1% of Americans serve in the military these days. Veterans can't do it alone. And we would have never gotten so far if we haven't stood side by side with powerful allies and with skill sets that were not snipers like myself in the military. You know, I had to learn from really incredible mentors on how to organize and how to be a leader, despite the fact that I went through military leadership school. So we're here challenging these ideas, and you know, it's got to end at some point. We gotta challenge the military-industrial complex. Veterans for Peace is part of a campaign called People Over Pentagon, where we have really concrete numbers of specific budget cuts to the DoD budget that we're trying to push. We're getting Democratic candidates to adopt these things and political offices to adopt these things. But that's great. We also need our society at large to adopt these things. You know, we need the people in our neighborhoods to do the same thing. And that's, I think, when we really have strong power and we could actually have success. But you know, the world is changing. We're not only facing the threat of war and conflict, and you know, there's really two things existentially could end human life on this planet. And one is nuclear weapons, and the other is climate change.
That's right.
And the growing climate crisis is real. And if you don't feel it, it's probably because you've lived in a society that has exploited other nations to where we don't have to feel the effects yet. But it's real in a lot of different communities, and if we don't make concrete changes now, we're not going to live through it. And I have a 5-year-old child named Ocean, and it's his burden to bear, and I've got to prepare him the best I can. Obviously trying to stop this myself, but we've got to prepare the next generation. I talk a lot about the tools of Veterans for Peace, and a lot of people are excited the fact that I was an Iraq war veteran, a younger generation of veteran, and now I'm the director of the organization. But we've got to build an organization that's ready to take on the future veterans, not my generation. We've already got to think about the next generation of warriors coming from these conflicts. And what tools are we going to give them? What resources and networks are we going to give them to prepare them to fight against this machine? So let's keep organizing. Let's gather every year at this spot. Keep having these conversations. And I just appreciate you all for coming. Thank you. Take care.